Hey, what's going on everybody? ChazmaN here, and I come bringing you an update. If you gauge from the thumbnail, I took a bit of a dive and did a bit of a thing that I really feel like will benefit my channel and really improve the quality on many of the projects that I do for you guys. So yes, excitingly, I built a new PC. Now this one is actually a huge upgrade over my previous PC, which we built in 2012. And I say we because I pretty much had a buddy build it for me, which is why this one for me is a little extra special, seeing as how I built the entire thing myself. Now I'll be quick, but I did think it might be kind of fun to tell you guys what parts make up the PC, and also talk with you guys about how this affects my channel and what it means for me. Before we start, I would like to preface by saying I am not a wealthy man by any means. I have been planning for this purchase for about a year now, and went into this process with a budget of about $1,000. So with that, let's go ahead and get into the internals. Right off the bat, I'll say these first two components were gifted to me from a friend, so do not count these towards that $1,000 budget I said that I had. Shout out to Kyle. Luckily, I was gifted one of the most expensive parts about buying a PC, and that is a graphics card. I got an NVIDIA GeForce RTX 2060, and with the GPU market being as crazy as it is right now, when my buddy offered to give me this graphics card, I was more than happy to take it. So I think I'll definitely ride out this graphics card for the next year or two, and hopefully the market will open back up, and maybe I'll look into a newer graphics card sometime down the road. And the last of my two gifts was two 8GB DDR4 XPG Gamix D10 RAM sticks. Now these do run at 3000 MHz, so in terms of speed, these should do me fine similarly to the graphics card at least for the next year or two. Okay, so now that the gifts are out of the way, let's get into the items that I actually used that $1,000 budget on. As for the starting point for the PC, the motherboard I went with was the MSI Mag B550 Tomahawk. Now I tried not to go cheap on the motherboard simply because I was really trying to future-proof it as much as I could and fit within my budget. What stuck out to me on this motherboard was its very good price point, as well as it had really good reviews all across the board on Newegg. A couple other things that I really liked is it has a couple USB 3.2 Type-C ports. It also supports some future AMD Ryzen processors, of which we'll get into in a second. And lastly, it supports DDR4 3200s, which is probably what I will upgrade to in the future. And finally, I guess I kind of just like the look of it. I like the extended heatsink, which will help with cooling, and I like the black and white kind of plain look. I think it makes it look pretty sleek, with the RGBs on the logo acting as a pretty nice finishing touch. Next up, for the processor, I went with the AMD Ryzen 7 3700X 8-core processor. It runs at 3.6 MHz and has a max turbo of 4.4 MHz. Once again, like the motherboard, I was willing to put a little bit extra money into this processor in terms of future-proofing. It seems to go really well with DDR4 3200s, which again I do plan on purchasing in the future. And finally, same as the motherboard, this processor had immaculate reviews and seems to present a really good value for what you're spending. Unfortunately for that fan cooler that came with my processor, I finally decided to go with a liquid cooler. The selected cooler was the MSI Mag Core Liquid 360R AIO Liquid CPU Cooler. The 360mm radiator with the cooler also comes with 3 attachable 120mm fans, which of course have RGB lights. Wow! The mountable blockhead on top of the processor also has the logo of MSI, which is a pretty sweet dragon, which spins and also has RGB lights. As for storage, I went with a 1TB Western Digital Blue SN550 NVMe solid-state drive. Now again, considering my previous PC was going on 10 years old, this is my first game console or PC that has had a solid-state drive put into it. So at 1TB, my OS fits in there perfectly and leaves room for a handful of games to be installed on the NVMe. I don't know about you guys, but when I installed this solid-state drive, I found it crazy how tiny these SSDs are getting nowadays. It's super impressive that $100 can get you something so tiny, yet at 1TB.
So smooth.
With 2 items less, the PC of course requiring power, the supply that I went with was the EVGA 600DD 600 watt power supply. When choosing the parts, I initially ran a test to see how much wattage I would need, and it got to around 500 watts, so I decided to go one step above to 600 in order to future-proof, because I do plan on upgrading those couple parts. Another aspect that helped facilitate me putting the extra money in for the power is the fact that the supply I went with was non-modular, which means that all of the cords come attached and you're not able to reattach and do whatever you want with it. Non-modular supplies are also normally cheaper than semi or fully modular. There is also one more aspect that helped drive me in the direction of this gold certified non-modular power supply, and that would be the case or tower that I chose. When looking at cases, the one that stuck out to me the whole time I was looking was the metallic Neo Cube dual chamber mid tower.
So what do you think? Does it come in black?
Now of course beauty is in the eye of the beholder, but I think this thing is sexy as heck. It can fit up to 10 fans, but right now I only have 7 on there. Man, the RGB lights from the inside of the case just emanate from the front and side mounted dual tempered glass walls. It of course has the Type-C USB ports along with my motherboard, so that works. And as I was saying earlier with the power supply, this case has a pocket in the back of the wall that allows me to hide the power supply back there, and that's why I didn't really care if I got a modular or non-modular power supply before. Now, I don't know if this is a super common feature of most modern cases, but if it isn't, it really should be, I think. Okay, well that was the specifics on the parts. Now let's touch on the budget for me and my PC. Once again, I'm a very lucky dude, so exclude the price of the graphics card and the RAM, and that means I went into this process with $1,000 to spend on the rest of those parts. The motherboard was $163, my processor was $330, the liquid cooler was $140, the NVMe was $105, my power supply unit was $65, and finally the case was $100 even. Throw in a $5 SATA cord and that brings my total to $915, coming in just under budget. So as I said before, this purchase definitely feels like a huge investment for me. It'll improve my overall gaming quality for myself, as well as open up my gaming library. My editing speed should improve dramatically. My capturing quality should be heavily improved. And also finally, I'd like to get into some streaming, which my previous PC couldn't even really do. Happily, this video will be the first video I've edited with the PC, so I'd love to hear what are your thoughts, and I'd love to hear what kind of builds you guys might have, and what are your plans for the future. Anyways, as always, I just want to say thank you so much for watching. Please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe if you liked it. I love you, please be safe, and I of course can't wait to deliver you guys another video on the next EnteR ChazmaN. Party on, PC people. Hey now, I see you made it through the video and liked or even possibly loved it. Well, if you want to see any more additional content or you'd like to get into contact with me, consider checking out some of my social medias right here. And if you'd like to go above and beyond and want to support my channel monetarily, here is also a couple places where you can do so. And if nothing else, simply liking, sharing, and subscribing would make me the happiest ChazmaN on the planet.